Rowdy Tellez and the Seattle Mariners absolutely dookied on the Toronto Blue Jays over the weekend. The Mariners were able to win that series, and Joe and I are going to go over those games and what we saw from some of this Mariners offense, which is going to lead us into, are we buying this offense? Do we think the Mariners offense is as good as it has been so far on this road trip? We're then going to go into my Operation Overreaction, which actually is a fan Operation Overreaction. We're going to bring that to you before we talk about the Boston Red Sox series starting on Tuesday. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 184 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Christian, the Nate, the Rich, and the Max episode of the podcast. We ran into those four, along with a bunch of other people whose names we just weren't able to catch at the Marine Layer podcast. They were doing a live event at Queen Anne Beer Hall. And so we went there, got to hang out with them, got to watch the game. Next time they do it, we hope to see you guys there because it was a heck of a lot of fun. But I am here with the man himself, Joseph Lacey.
That's me. I'm here. We won another series. That's 4 in a row now. This is I don't want to say history repeats itself. Knocked on the wood, that's definitely real. But they're winning series. And that's a good sign, hopefully, for playing consistent ball, trying to go out there and win every night. Things that Dan said at the beginning of the season during spring training, that they're going to make sure that they're dialed in, locked in every single opportunity that they can get. A winning series should be the benchmark. Could they have swept this series? Potentially. They lost game 1 in a 1-3 fashion. Not necessarily the best work out of the Mariners in this one. Brian Wu, listen, dude was a warrior in this one because he, like I think many of the pitchers in this series against Toronto, outside maybe of Logan, he's still in some trouble too. They were getting ambushed. The Blue Jays batters were very, very aggressive in this series. Wu started off not so hot, but still manages to go 7 strong. 97 pitches, 7 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 4 Ks. Exactly what the Mariners needed with no off day in between the Red series and this series. Casey Lawrence, he pitched an inning. That was the only pitcher that the Mariners had to use. That means their bullpen was going to be fully rested, fully available, likely for Game 2, and hopefully for Game 3, should they not have had to use a ton of them. Wink, nod, wink, awareness of what actually happened in Game 2. But this first game, they lose Apple TV night. It's like, offense just didn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of unforced errors, too.
Yeah, a lot of base running errors. There were, Rowdy Tellez trying to tag up. Who else? Julio got thrown on the bases, right?
He was trying to steal when he wasn't the tying run. He was just, they were 2 down. He was not the tying run on base, and he got thrown out. Randy being sent in a weird spot with the throw getting cut off at second on a hit by Luke Raley. So he got kind of caught in between. Would that have been the difference maker in this game? Would the Mariners have been able to claw back? Potentially. I mean, the Blue Jays, yeah, they scored 3 runs, but they didn't look overpowering necessarily in this one. Bowden Francis pitched well, and then the Blue Jays bullpen did, and they pieced it together, I would say. But I want, as Mariners fans, I don't really want to talk about the loss that much. We'd rather talk about the Saturday game where you need to win to even it up, so that way you can guarantee yourself you're exiting this second stop in the road trip at least at 500 before you hit the final leg. And in miraculous fashion, the Mariners did just that.
Yeah, this was a fun game because, again, we were at the Queen Anne Beer Hall with the Marine Layer guys and a lot of you guys as well. And this game went 12 innings. It was Julio's first day off of the year. Miles Mastroboni was the leadoff hitter. There was a lot of things going on in this game, along with the fact that we were at Queen Anne Beer Hall with the guys. So Cal Raleigh, again, continues to be a menace in Toronto. Rowdy Tellez, of course, coming up with the big grand slam. That was me. I did that because I'm Rowdy Tellez.
Right before, earlier in this game, hitting into a double play as well with the bases loaded.
And we all had some choice words to say about him.
Immediately redeemed himself.
He did. And I feel like I have to buy a Tellez jersey now because when he hit into that double play, I said if he hits a grand slam here, I'm going to buy a Tellez jersey. He had a grand slam a few innings later. So, I don't know how that works, but it's something like that. Ben Williamson obviously had his first big league home run in this one as well. A lot of fun there. Yeah, good game overall from the Mariners offense. They did run into a little bit of trouble with Logan Gilbert. He only went 4 2/3, gave up 7 hits, but he did strike out 9. And
Oh my God. If you guys saw that, there's a bug crawling towards my phone, and I just about crapped my pants.
Anyway, before all that happened and Joe was afraid of nature, Logan Gilbert, shut up, 4 2/3, 7 hits, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts in this game. Colin Snyder went an inning and a third, gave up 1 run and 1 K. And then the back end of the bullpen is where things got interesting. You saw Carlos Vargas go 2 innings. We saw Casey Legomina throw an inning. Edward Bazardo somehow got out of an inning. And then Andres Munoz came in to get the game to the 12th inning, where Casey Lawrence was able to finish it off after that Rowdy Tellez grand slam. A lot of pitches from Logan. He threw 102 pitches in just 4 2/3, which, like you mentioned, has kind of been the theme against the Mariners pitching staff this year. It's attack them, attack them, attack them, because the more pitches you make them throw, the faster you're going to be able to get that rotation out of the game, because you know how good their rotation is, especially when you know how their bullpen is faring right now. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was kind of the goal against this Mariners pitching staff. And we talked about it in the preview in the last podcast that the Blue Jays had a pretty good batting average. They haven't had a lot of home runs, but they've been making a lot of contact this year, and we saw that a lot in this series.
In this game alone, in the second game, they go 3 for 19 with runners in scoring position and leave 14 on base, did the Blue Jays. I mean, it was tied in innings 9, 10, 11, where a single run wins it for the Blue Jays, and the Mariners bullpen somehow held on. You didn't really touch on it, you didn't really say it, which I'm surprised. The decision between Logan and Dan to keep him out there, because Dan went out there to be like, hey, how we doing? And Logan said, I'm gonna stick it out, and it doesn't end up working for them in that situation. Whereas we saw question marks with Santos and the Spire situation from the Astros series. Mm-hmm. Is that what that one was? Yep. So weird, not weird, just interesting dynamics, I think, kind of shaping up there. See where that takes them going forward throughout the rest of the season. Like, will Dan just kind of pull him it the next time instead of giving him a chance to fight for it? Mm-hmm. Or is it every single time Dan walks out there, he's like, do you want this, or should we go get someone else, kind of a situation? Mm-hmm. Not that it changed the end result of the game necessarily, as the Mariners come away 8-4 victorious in that second game, leading to the final game with Castillo versus Easton Lucas, a pretty pivotal part of this road trip as well, where, as I mentioned, if they can win the second game, they can at least escape Toronto at 500 on the road trip. If they win this game, they're guaranteed heading into Boston with, if you win one game, you're 5-4 on the road trip no matter what, mm-hmm. right? If they win this final game in Toronto, you're 4-2 on the road trip so far. You've secured a tiebreaker advantage against the Blue Jays to start the year.
Right.
You're doing well. You're winning another series. And the Mariners got off to a very hot start in Game 3 off of Easton Lucas. Dylan Moore, another leadoff homer. Mm-hmm. Cal hit a homer. Mm-hmm. The offense just continued to offense. But Castillo himself, similar to the other pitchers in this Mariners series, it's like they just can't get outs. They are getting hit around. Castillo, 5 innings, 10 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 5 Ks. The Blue Jays, honestly, they should have equalized at some point early in this game. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the 3 for 19, 14 left on, 5 for 21 in this one with 12 left on for the entire tally. It's just, count your lucky stars, because if Castillo's not missing bats like he was, like if he continues to be hit this hard, I'm kind of starting to get a little concerned.
Yeah, I think that credit where it's due, he was able to work around a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. Again, 10 hits, only gave up 3 runs. That's pretty decent, even though it was only in the 5 innings. But yeah, it's something that we saw a lot from the Blue Jays in this series, them attacking the pitchers. And I think that it's kind of been the theme against the Mariners pitchers as a whole so far this year, because like I just mentioned, they're trying to get to that bullpen. I'm not necessarily worried about it with Luis Castillo. Again, it's a road trip, a second game of the road trip. We know how much better the Mariners pitchers pitch at home, and so like there's that aspect as well. I don't know. I think it would take probably 3 or 4 more starts like this for me to really start to be like, okay, like we gotta really have a serious conversation about Luis Castillo. But overall, I mean, you come away with a series win versus the Toronto Blue Jays. Johnny Juta was thrilled about it. He loved it. And yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty good about it. But the offense, they scored 8 runs in back-to-back games. And people have been talking about it a little bit. Do we think the Mariners offense is for real, Joe? Do we think that this offense is going to be sustainable throughout the rest of the year?
As it stands, live stats full season on Fangraphs, Mariners have the 6th best offense in baseball by WRC Plus, tied with the Rays at a 115 WRC Plus. They are 15 points better by that conglomerate metric than league average. They're striking out at 23.9%. It's like around league average, right? Like roughly.
Yep.
They're walking at 10.8%. That's above league average. They have the 2nd most steals in all of baseball behind the Brewers. So they're leading the American League in steals. The Mariners offense, it's not conventional by any means. We know that. I mean, in the final game against Toronto, they struck out 18 times. That's you hear an offense striking out 18 times, you imagine they maybe scored 1 or 2 runs. No, they scored 8. I'm buying the Mariners offense in the short term. I think that when they're hot, they're going to be hot. I think that having a streaky offense is natural with the way the roster is constructed. I don't think Cal is going to continue to be as hot, like heavy of a hitter as he has. Like Rowdy's not going to now come into his own. I don't think that the last 3 games are any indicator that he's maybe figured it out. I think it's more so he got hot at the right time and he propelled the Mariners to 2 wins in this series. Whereas in the next series, it could be Luke Raley. It could be J.P. Crawford. Dylan Moore is not going to continue to hit 300 on the entire season, I don't think. So am I buying it? Yes. I still have some concerns. I mean, 18 strikeouts can be alarming. If that continues to compound, you're going to run into some issues. Julio needs to get it going again, but the nice thing is there's been people around him that will help mitigate that. Randy, Cal, like I said, Rowdy in this one. Polo had kind of a quiet series, but he's been your best hitter up until this point. I think guys are going to have up and downs throughout the entire year. Are we expecting a 2-hit game out of Mitch Garver anytime soon again? No, but he got one in the 3rd game against Toronto. It's not about every single game. So for some teams and some players, those guys are like the MVPs. Those are the all-stars. How many offensive players on the Mariners do we see as all-stars right now? Maybe 2? Polo and Garver? Whoa.
Whoa.
I read Garver's name as I was like looking down the line. I'm like, well, that's not right because he's usually DHing. I was looking for catcher and I saw that because he was right because Polo was not in the lineup. Man, Polo and Cal is what I meant to say.
That was a statement.
After a 2-hit game, listen, Garver's on the comeback. Maybe even Dylan Moore, right? How sustainable is it? I'm not certain. I think you might be buying it more than I am, though.
Interesting. I'm not buying it.
Interesting.
But not in a bad way.
Okay.
I think this Mariners offense will be better the rest of the year. I'm not buying what they have right now. I think when you have guys like Julio, who's hitting 188, right? He's not hitting well. Randy's hitting 200. Obviously, he's had a relatively decent year so far, but still, he's going to be better than that. You see guys like Donovan Solano hitting 100. He more than likely will hit much higher than 100. I know. This is me I'm talking, but Luke Raley hitting 175. I'm not buying it. And you don't have Victor Robles on your team right now. The Mariners are 24th in baseball with a 261 batting average on balls in play. They're getting unlucky. This team is hitting the ball hard, but they're not having the results to show for it. And that is why I think that this offense is going to be better than what it is right now. So you're getting a lot from like not role players,
people in unexpected spots.
Yeah.
Dylan Moore, Miles Mastroboni. You never expected Polo to be an above 340 hitter at this point of the season. Maybe after the first 3 games, you could be like, oh, he's hitting well to start the year. A sustained 20-game stretch, probably not.
Right. Exactly. And that's why I think that when these guys come around, when Julio comes around, because he always does, right? Every single year, especially as it starts to get a little bit warmer. We know that in terms of WRC plus, they are 6th in baseball with a 115 WRC plus. Just imagine what that could be like if Julio was hitting. Because Julio being good and Dylan Moore being good are two very different things. Dylan Moore being good is fine, but Julio being good is an MVP.
I'm just saying, a 316 average with a 967 OPS.
It's good. Is that? But it's not.
That is a higher OPS than Julio's ever put up in his career.
That is true.
But I get what you're saying, though. It's not sustainable. Whereas, like, if we saw that slash line from Julio, we'd expect it to be more sustainable. If Dylan Moore could play 140 games on the road, he'd be an MVP.
Against lefties, 140 games against lefties, he'd be an MVP.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's why I think that when these guys get healthy, and especially like Robles, for example, if he's able to come back at some point this season, hopefully, you're going to see this offense tick up. And I think the Mariners could make some moves, of course. There are obviously some places on this roster you probably need to replace right now. Mitch Garver being one of them.
Whoa, that's current all-star Mitch Garver.
But I also feel the same way about this pitching staff. I'm not buying how the rotation has looked so far. The Mariners have, I think, either 4 or 5 quality starts on the year so far. That's last year at this time, they were in the midst of the second longest quality start streak in Major League Baseball history. They hit at the 4th of May. They were at 21 quality starts in a row. The Mariners offense has 4, the Mariners pitchers have 4 or 5 right now. And so that's why I think that when you see these guys going out there at 100 pitches by the 5th, and we see them getting pulled out, that's not going to continue. That's not sustainable. These guys are better than that. We know that. They know that. And that's not to say the Mariners pitching staff has been bad. They just haven't been getting deep into games, and you've had to use your bullpen a little bit more, which we've seen how bad some of the people in the bullpen have been so far. I mean, the Mariners have made a lot of moves in their bullpen thus far. And so I don't buy the offense. I don't buy the pitching staff. I honestly think this team is better than what we've seen, and they've played really well right now considering.
12-10, the only team in the American League West with a positive run differential as of recording. I think comparing the team's pitching as it stands right now to that run that they were on last year from April 10th to May 4th, the starting pitchers had an ERA of 1.38. For 3 weeks, the Mariners starters had an ERA of sub 1.5. That, if we're talking about unsustainable, the fact that they made that slightly sustainable for however long they did is incredible. That's nothing short of why they got off to such a good start last year. I am in the same boat as you. I'm not buying that this pitching staff is as poor as it has been. And albeit they haven't been that bad, it's just they haven't been as consistent about going deep. I mean, the Mariners bullpen on the year in 2025 have a 3.3 ERA. 6th in all of baseball. If you look at their starting pitching, they're currently sitting at 17th in all of baseball with a 4.13 ERA. Yes, they're missing George Kirby, but if one of those starts is Emerson Hancock, 2 or Luis F. Castillo, where they're like really bad, because Hancock's last start out was good. It was good. You could say they're missing something out of the rotation, and I think that argument's valid. They're not going to have an ERA by season's end from their starting pitchers north of 4. I refuse to believe that this pitching staff, specifically the starters, are not, like, they're not talented enough to get it under 4. They can get under 3.8. They can get under 3.7 easily if they continue to hopefully start to miss bats more and not get hit around and not get into such deep counts. That's what's been holding them back. Like, if Logan, say, was at 70 pitches through those 4 2/3, similar amount of, 2 runs, 7 hits, whatever, they were just quick hits or quick interactions with whatever occasions. I can't think of what it would
appearances
be.
At bats.
No, just like when action happens in game. You know what I mean? Like occasions where the ball is in play, essentially. Like contact is made, outs are happening, or hits are happening. They're efficient. Woo, he was at like 44 pitches through the 3rd, but he'd given up 6 hits. They were efficient hits. Whereas Logan, he's constantly working deep counts. If he gets to the 6th inning in that game with a similar stat line because his pitch count wasn't so high, the Mariners' ERA would be lower. Like the starting pitcher's ERA would be lower, is what I'm trying to say. Is it, like, are they going to reach that level again in 25 as they did in 24 for that 3-week stretch of a 1.38? Probably not. I don't think so. That was a generational type performance. They were a full run better than any other pitching staff in baseball in that 3-week stretch. Can they be better than they are right now? Absolutely. And I think you talk about regressing to the mean a lot. Do I think that the pitchers will regress to the mean? Yes. Am I worried that the offense, relative to what we've seen in previous years, will regress to a mean slightly? Maybe. I'm not. I'm surprised you're more bullish on the offense than I am, just given what we've seen and how we've talked about it. But I think that's encouraging that even with strikeouts being high in some games, obviously not in others, walks still like coming at a decent rate, that there's still room for growth, but there's also room where if they're level at this 115 WRC plus the entire year, that's better than the entirety of 24 as a whole, because
they would have made the playoffs.
They would have made the playoffs at that rate.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a big addition to that has been Ben Williamson, Joe.
He's doing pretty well.
Who the Mariners obviously put over there at third base. He had his first major league home run in Toronto. And our Operation Overreaction actually comes from Mike E., our longest tenured member, our longest tenured Mojovian. And he says this Operation Overreaction is that Ben Williamson will have a better career as a Mariner than Adrian Beltre had as a Mariner. Joe, can you share with me Adrian Beltre's stats as a Seattle Mariner?
Well, as it stands right now on Baseball Reference, Reference WAR, Ben Williamson's got a negative .1 WAR, which I don't know how it's possible. Doesn't seem like he's been a negative player. But I think Mike admittedly said that he was riding the high of a victory against Cincinnati, and he's just excited about one of the young guns getting called up, kind of a situation. For Ben Williamson to be a better career Mariner than Adrian Beltre, and I asked him specifically, I was like, are we only counting WAR? And he said yes.
Oh, did he?
So, like,
okay,
counting stats, whatever. And, like, tenure, because Beltre only spent 5 seasons with Seattle, and he accumulated 21.2 wins. So, about 4 wins, a little bit over 4 wins a year. So I said, okay, if Ben Williamson goes 8 years and 22 wins, is that a better Mariners career than Adrian Beltre? And he said yes, on the principle of WAR alone. You can argue in the comments if you want, but 21 wins over 5 years had a, like, what is that? What am I looking at here? He had 751 hits, 100 home runs, drove in 396 RBI, was never an all-star, won 2 Gold Gloves. If Ben Williamson, by the end of his Mariners tenure, if he's not a career Mariner, if he does make it as a big leaguer full-time for a 10 to 12-year career, I don't think he's ever going to amount to 93.7 WAR like Beltre and be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He certainly could. I'm not going to rule it out, but that's neither here nor there. I think it's an overreaction, and a pretty steady one. Not to say that Williamson can't develop, because he hasn't looked overmatched. He's looked pretty decent at the plate, I will admit. Hitting the ball hard. He looks comfortable over at third. Footwork's great. Strong arm. He's got the chance to stick at third base. I think the hard part is the next wave of prospects, especially the big ones, might kick him off that position. Because you have Cole Young, who's going to play second base. You have Colt Emerson, who is a shortstop, but might be a third baseman by that time. Because you still need to leave room for maybe Fallon and Celestin, or slide Young over to short and have Michael Arroyo play second base. There could be other people along, maybe at the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft, someone at one of those positions. Will Ben Williamson have enough staying power at third offensively to stick long term and get 140 games every single year? No. And that's the hard part, and that's the longevity and the tenure thing that's going to play a factor here. Because, yes, he's got the glove to stick there. Will he be able to produce at probably, I think all you need is a league average production for him to stick there. But to be better than Beltre, you got to be, I think, a little bit better than league average.
Yeah. I think that Ben Williamson's future, especially when all these prospects come up, and this is something that when the Marine Layer, I think it was the Marine Layer guys that brought it up. What do you do with Ben Williamson when all these guys come up? He kind of becomes your Dylan Moore. He kind of becomes a guy that you can put anywhere who's pretty good defensively. Now, I don't necessarily know how good Ben Williamson's going to be if you put him in the outfield.
Nah.
But he's played shortstop a little bit. He's played third. You could probably put him over there at second base. He could be an infield, rover of some kind. And that's, obviously, we've seen it with Dylan Moore. That's very valuable to you. But to be better than Beltre, I just think it's an overreaction. A fun one, albeit, but an overreaction nonetheless. As the Mariners have the off day today on Monday, they get prepared for a Red Sox series. Really good transition. Colton just jumped right in, just boom, firm stop. There was
No, that's great.
nothing. Ben Williamson's going over the monster. There we go. Transition, go crazy. The Red Sox are playing today on Monday versus the White Sox, so keep that in mind. As of right now, there have been no official starters announced. But Joe, who we got in game one?
It would be Bryce Miller in his turn through the rotation against making his season debut, fresh off the injured list, Brayan Bello, who in his most recent rehab start, I think went 4 1/3 and got hit around a little bit. I think 7 hits and 4 earned runs. I don't know if the hits line is accurate, but he did strike out 7. I think that's where I'm getting the 7 from. Regardless, wasn't exceptionally sharp. I read that the fastball velo was up to 97, sitting 94, 95. Mariners have faced Bello in the past. I think it's a good thing that he's making his debut against the Mariners, though. I think that bodes well for Seattle, in my opinion. I don't think Bello's a pitcher that you're going to be completely overmatched by, specifically in a season debut type situation. I think if it was, say, Crochet misses the first 2 weeks of the year, and then he's making his debut, I'd feel a bit different. Right. But I'm not intimidated necessarily by Brayan Bello making his season debut on Tuesday. And with how Miller looked in his previous start, albeit only 70 some odd pitches, I think hopefully that allows for him to maybe go a little bit deeper in this one pitch count wise, into the mid 80s, maybe low 90s, and hopefully it's efficient. That's the big kickers. You want those 80 to 90 pitches to be used over 6 innings at least. Yes, the Mariners do have an off day, so the bullpen should be rested. Maybe we'll see Saran Lau in this one. Maybe make his Mariners debut there. But Boston, as it stands on the season, has a 102 WRC plus, sitting at the middle of the road, 15th in all of baseball. So it's a good offense. It's league average. Maybe some guys are underperforming. Christian Campbell got off to a hot start. Rafi got off to an awful start and then leveled out. Bregman's looked good. I think Miller, he's not going to be, again, how I'm not intimidated by Brayan Bello against the Mariners offense, I don't think Miller's going to be intimidated walking into Boston.
Yeah, I think that for Bryce Miller, he just needs to make sure he has his command tomorrow. Tomorrow. He needs to have his command in this game because we've seen him kind of battle it throughout the season so far. Fun fact, actually, Brayan Bello made his season debut against the Mariners last year on opening day.
I was going to say, wasn't it opening day?
Yes, it was. And the Mariners won that. No, they didn't. They lost that game. They lost, but Mitch Haniger hit a home run, so that was cool.
But he's gone now.
But Dylan Moore hit a home run in that game as well, I think.
That sounds right.
Keep that in mind. Dylan Moore going Yahtzee!
Back-to-back games
versus Brayan Bello. I'm in. Unfortunately, we were not going to see Tanner Houck in this game, or in this series, which you would think, what do you mean, Colton? Tanner Houck's good, right? He's as good as Logan Gilbert, right? Red Sox fans? Oh, Tanner Houck sucks.
That's so rude of you.
He's off to a really bad start so far this year. I'm mad at him because he got me negative points in fantasy, and then I lost to Joe, so I'm mad at him.
That's a 9 ERA.
Yeah, he's been incredibly bad. So, Joe, game 2, Emerson Hancock on the mound versus former Brave Sean Newcomb. Left-handed pitcher. I don't know. The Mariners have seen him a little bit when he was with Oakland over a couple seasons, but I don't really expect them to have any trouble versus Sean Newcomb. You are going to have your right-handed hitting lineup out there, but maybe the monster plays well into that with guys. I could see Mitch Garver going over the monster or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Sean Newcomb, but it is Emerson Hancock on the other side. So it's like Hancock had a good start in his last outing. Can he build on that, or do we see more of what we saw in start number 1? This is going to be a big start for him, I think, because with George Kirby's rehab assignment, ideally, looming soon, I think that Emerson Hancock only has a handful of starts before we see George Kirby on the mound again.
Yeah, this will be the not like final test. I feel like maybe he gets one more before Kirby comes back in an ideal world. But being able to build off of his last start with the Reds in this another hitter-friendly park against the Red Sox would be big for Hancock to go 5 innings again and keep the Mariners in the ballgame. A lefty opposite him, Sean Newcomb. I mean, he's off to a pretty okay start. 17 innings, 4 starts, a 3.63 ERA, a 9.87 Ks per night. Like, it's not bad against the Mariners right-handed lineup that we haven't necessarily been in love with to start the year because guys like Garver and Solano haven't really been getting off to the best starts, admittedly. Dylan Moore, the saving grace of the he'll hit another leadoff home run in this game, but you didn't give any credit to Donnie Barrels. Donnie Baseball. He's going over the monster, not Mitch. Donovan Solano. Count it. Put it in paper. Stamped. Approved. Home run against Sean Newcomb in this second game to give the Mariners a lead and keep Emerson Hancock in this game. I have the script. It's right here, right in front of me. Because the Mariners need to at least win one of the first two games. Because the third game is going to be a tough one. If they win the first two games, that's the ideal outcome. Because then you're guaranteed a 6-3 road trip at worst. You win one of the games, you're guaranteed a winning road trip at worst. And we say that because potential AL Cy Young Award winner 2025 Garrett Crochet gets the final game against the Mariners on Thursday against Brian Wu.
Against the real 2025 American League Cy Young Brian Wu, you might add. I'm going to do it again this year. I did it last year, and I'm going to make a prediction against Garrett Crochet.
Okay.
Last year, I predicted that Tyler Locklear would hit his first Major League home run versus Garrett Crochet.
You did.
And he did. Now, it wasn't the right inning, but it did happen. I'll do it again in the second inning. Top of the second inning. Donovan Solano will hit his first Mariners home run off of Garrett Crochet over the monster.
I love you so much.
It's happening. Book it right now. It's not going to be against Sean Newcomb. It's going to be against freaking Garrett Crochet. It's not going to be against someone who's like, eh. It's going to be against one of the best pitchers in baseball because why wouldn't it be?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, Crochet's been really good. A 1.13 ERA in 32 innings this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's been every bit as advertised for what the Red Sox traded for. And they've needed it. They're not off to the best start. I mean, they're 12-11. I think relative to expectations, like maybe that's where you'd expect them to be, but the negative run differentials maybe not exactly where they wanted to be, specifically with bringing in Bregman, their thoughts about Devers, how Duran looked last year. This Red Sox team, I think they're better than the Blue Jays on paper.
Yeah, I would agree.
And they're a half game back of the Blue Jays as it stands right now. The Mariners, obviously, they're 12-10 as well. So by the time you're hearing this, the Red Sox will either be 12, or maybe not by the time you're hearing this, but end of Monday, they'll be 500 or they'll be 13-11. Regardless, everyone in the American League is pretty mid outside of maybe the Yankees. So it's wide open. If the Mariners win this series again, a 6-3 road trip, and then you get to come home, and what's the Marlins next?
The Marlins and the Angels.
W. That's huge. Because as it stands, the Mariners have played much better at home than on the road. But that was, because the Giants series is where you started.
Right.
The Mariners have a chance, if they sweep the Red Sox, to be 7-5 on the road to start the year. Versus at home, they're 8-5. There's a possibility that the Mariners are road warriors to start 2025.
If the Mariners sweep the Red Sox,
Yeah.
taking my shirt off.
Live? Maybe not.
There'll be some editing in there. Taking my shirt off. There's no shot. They sweep the Red Sox.
With Crochet starting one of the games?
No, because again, AL Cy Young Brian Wu is against him.
Okay.
But they got to lose. Maybe even it's a Hancock start. You know what I mean?
Okay. I mean, hey, man, if you don't believe in this team, just say it, man.
Shut up. That's going to do it from us here. On episode 184 of the Hit It Here podcast. We appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.